People sentenced in the 80s 2000s. What modern world change shocked you the most? I remember getting the bus years ago and this old bloke got on heading away from town center towards the more residential areas. Without a second thought he sparked up a cigar. One of the passengers told him you can't smoke on a bus. He apologized and quickly stubbed it out but said he got discharged from prison that day. And when he went in you could smoke anywhere you wanted, so this was a massive culture shock to him. Knew a guy who was blown away by digital cameras. He had purchased an old, terrible one and couldn't get over how amazing it was. Prisoner transfer I did one time for this man who was sentenced to life in 1968. And it's the first time he'd driven past the CN Tower in Toronto and he couldn't believe how tall it was. That and he was blown away by how many different car brands there were. My friend's older brother was jailed in 1994 and served 15 years. He said when he went in, anyone with an in-car phone was super rich. And to then see absolutely everyone have a completely cordless, pocket-sized phone was amazing. He also said that all the TV adverts had websites to visit, or were for completely online stores, which were a bit of an alien concept, as he'd never really seen or used the internet. He also found the chip and pin process of paying for things on a bank card extremely exciting. A co-worker a few years ago had spent 10 years in jail. He got out right when Bluetooth headsets for phones were huge. He'd talk about all the random conversations he thought people were trying to have with him, and smartphones freaked him the hell out. I hired a guy that was released after 17 years circa 2005. A week after he started working he bought a phone. He had a childlike wonder with push-to-talk and texting. A week later he was pissed off that he couldn't text his order into Hungry Howie's. My cousin's husband, that she married while he was serving 10 years beginning around 2008, wanted the first thing he did as a free man was to go to Hollywood Video and rent movies to watch with her. Then she blew his mind with Netflix. At least the idea of Netflix and chill wasn't far from his original plan. But he was shocked about there not being video stores anymore. Got a call from a woman filing a claim on some abandoned funds. I got all her information and then asked for an email address and she said, "What's email? I keep hearing about it. But you gotta understand I've been in prison a long time. Right, double quotation." I remember helping a guy who went in 2005. Got released 2014. Had a black and green AudioVox phone in his effects and asked where he could activate it. I had to explain that it wouldn't be happening lol. Like 3 months later, you know, I like the iPhone but I'm gonna wait for the release of the newest one. Adapted pretty quick. I was talking to a lady who runs the education for a federal prison in Florida. She said when they start getting rambunctious or off topic, she mentions a new feature of the newest iPhone and all of a sudden they're very interested in what she has to say again. A friend said his dad's friend tried VR after about 30 years in prison for like second-degree murder or something and he got scared, fell over and broke the headset. There was that documentary of someone who was sentenced in the 70s, Otis I think, and he just couldn't believe the stuff he was seeing. Since he lived in New York, with all the screens it was just a different city than all the different colored drinks and people wearing earphones like they were in the Secret Service. It's an interesting thing to watch. My friend got out of jail recently and was blown away by how many LEDs are everywhere and how many stores are using insane amounts of LED billboards. We were all at a buddy's house and he was blinded by all the bright LED light in the house. And AMP X200B. Edit. Getting a lot of messages about this. My friend has crazy bright LED bulbs in his kitchen. You can see this guy's kitchen from space. Also, the one sign that he couldn't believe was an H&M LED wall. I asked a friend what the hardest thing was for him readjusting to being free again. This is a roundabout of what he said. Closing doors. I'd leave the fridge open every time without fail for months. You're not allowed to open or shut anything for yourself, and I'd accidentally let the pets outside by forgetting I needed to close the front door someone else had opened in front of me. You forget the last one in roulette and have to learn it all again. Apostrophe. What was the thing you found you liked the most? Candy Crush gets phone back out and starts playing. 5 minutes later exclaim they've leveled up excitedly. So sweet. Asterisk. Not me personally, but we had an older guy rent out a room in our house a few years back. Usually we rented it out to students, but someone let us know that he had just moved to our city and needed something temporary until he found permanent accommodation. It was a bit frustrating because this guy would not use the internet to search for a car or place to live, didn't know how it worked and didn't trust it. We tried to help him learn how because we thought he was just old and stubbornly resisted technology, but nope. Turns out that he had spent 5 years in maximum security prison after being framed by WA police for murder in the mid-90s. Came out with trust issues and a dislike for the new internet. My uncle went away when fanny packs were in, and when he got out in the mid-2000s we had to break the news to him. Not my personal experience, but a man I worked with after he was released from prison after being sentenced as a young adult was blown away by the touchscreen ordering at Huawei and could not fathom why the employees could not take an oral order from him. I remember a story from Pakistan. A pregnant lady was convicted and she gave birth while in prison. Due to the corruption and broken law, the baby was also in prison until he was freed by a social worker who works for prison justice or something. By the time he was released he was already in his teens, I believe, and he was just shocked to see what the real world was. He didn't even understand the concept of waiting for the cars to stop before crossing the road. Sorry for my English. Edit. Social worker was named Ansar Bernie. My dad would always tell me stories, like how he got out, walked into Walmart, and ended up crying because he didn't have to ask to use the restroom. A couple other family members did really long time and couldn't use the bathroom without asking permission. Obligatory, not me, but apostrophe. In the early 2000s I worked with a guy that was sentenced in the mid-80s and had just come out. He told me the first time he went to a men's room he spent several minutes looking for the handle to flush motion sensor toilets was completely alien to him. Not me, but one of the most astounding changes I hear one of my dad's friends talking about is how having big asses was shameful and all models were flat. Now it's the other way around. So makes a lot's impact, I'd assume. Not me, but my older brother was in prison from 2006 to 2011 and he was shocked that all the TVs had gone to flat screen. He also missed the advent of iPhones, so he assumed all these flat screen TVS laptops were all touch screen like the iPhones were. Not me, but my father. I remember him trying to flip a CD upside down and put it back into the CD player like you would do with a record because it was skipping. Didn't notice how much of a big deal that must have been to him at the time. Adjusting to life on the outside can be really tough. At college, I bumped into a guy at a bus stop who did 20 years and had just gotten out the previous week. He struck up the conversation by talking about cell phones and how it was that we could talk with anyone by staring at a computer we could fit in our pocket. The concept baffled him. I had to explain the concept of why texting can be easier than calling. He told me that the thing that surprised him most, however, was how awful it was to watch the news. He hadn't been able to watch TV behind bars, and so was amazed and disappointed at how partisan and ridiculous news shows had become. What happened with Legos? They used to be simple. Oh come on. I know you know what I'm talking about. Legos were simple. Something happened out here while I was inside. Harry Potter Legos. Star Wars Legos. Complicated kits. Tiny little blocks. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, I just wanna know what happened.